Now stood ready, gripping a massive sword. High above, King Gbadegeshi watched from his throne. Beside him, Princess Ireti sobbed, her hands shaking as she begged him to stop. But the king only looked ahead, his face cold. The executioner raised the sword high. The crowd held their breath. The blade came down, but the moment it touched Akanni's neck, it shattered into pieces. Gasp filled the air. The executioner stumbled back. They thought he was just a slave and sentenced him to death, but this happened. The village of Ileoye was always at war. Warriors clashed swords, people screamed, and blood flowed like rain. The battlefield was a place of death, but for Akanni, it was where he belonged. He was the strongest warrior in the kingdom, feared by enemies and respected by his people. Everyone called him the King's Sword, a name he earned by winning countless battles for King Gbadegeshi. No one knew where Akanni came from. He had been raised as a slave, saved by Iyabo, a kind palace servant who raised him like her own. She always told him to be careful, to never stand out too much, but Akanni could not help it. He was born to fight. His victories made the people love him, but they also made the king nervous. A slave should never be this powerful. But for now, the king needed him, so he let him continue his work. But love was a different kind of battle. Princess Ireti, the king's only daughter, had fallen for Akanni. She watched him fight, admired his strength, and in secret, they started seeing each other. Their love was dangerous. No princess had ever been with a man like him. They met at night, whispering in the shadows. She traced a strange mark on his back, one he had since birth. This mark, it's special, she said. Akanni only laughed. It's just a birthmark. But deep inside, Ireti felt it meant something more. Their secrets could not last forever. The queen found out and told the king. A slave turned warrior has touched our daughter, she whispered in disgust. The king's face darkened. He had been looking for a reason to get rid of Akanni. Now he had one. Bring me his head. That night, Akanni's world changed forever. Soldiers stormed into his home, dragging him away. Princess Ireti fought, screamed for mercy, but her parents ignored her cries. By morning, the whole village gathered in the square. The king's greatest warrior was about to die. The village square was packed with people. The air was heavy with silence. Everyone had come to see Akanni die. He knelt in the center, his hands tied behind his back, his face calm. The executioner stood ready, gripping a massive sword. High above, King Gbadegeshi watched from his throne. Beside him, Princess Ireti sobbed, her hands shaking as she begged him to stop. But the king only looked ahead, his face cold. The executioner raised the sword high. The crowd held their breath. The blade came down, but the moment it touched Akanni's neck, it shattered into pieces. Gasp filled the air. The executioner stumbled back, his face pale with fear. The king sat forward, eyes narrowed. The executioner picked up another sword, swinging harder this time. Again, the blade broke upon impact. A third attempt, same result. The people started whispering. Something was wrong. The gods have spoken, a high priest murmured. The gods protect him, another priest said, bowing his head. The crowd grew restless. Some fell on their knees, believing Akanni to be blessed. Others backed away in fear, whispering about curses and spirits. Princess Ireti cried in relief, but the king's face darkened with anger. He did not believe in signs, he only believed in power. If I cannot kill you, the king said slowly, standing from his throne, then you will suffer another fate. He turned to his guards. Exile him, send him to the evil forest. The people gasped. The evil forest was worse than death. It was a cursed land, full of angry spirits and creatures that no man had ever survived. The queen smirked, satisfied. Princess Ireti screamed, begging for mercy, but her father ignored her. Guards grabbed Akanni, dragging him toward the kingdom's edge. The crowd watched in silence. No one spoke up for him. No one dared to help. As Akanni walked towards the darkness of the forest, he did not look back. He did not beg. He simply walked forward, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The evil forest was silent, but Akanni could feel unseen eyes watching him. The trees were twisted, their branches like claws. The air was thick with scents of decay. No one entered this place and lived. But Akanni had no choice. He walked deeper, his senses sharp. Strange sounds echoed around him, whispers, footsteps that were not his own, rustling in the dark. He gripped a sharp stone he had picked up along the way. It was a weak weapon, but it was better than nothing. For 3 days and nights, he wandered. Hunger gnawed at his belly, but he refused to show weakness. He slept with one eye open, fought off strange creatures that longed at him in the dark and kept moving forward. By the 7th night, he could barely stand. His vision blurred, his strength fading. He collapsed beside a large tree, breathing hard. This was it. He would die here. Then the fire appeared. A burning figure stood before him, its eyes glowing red. It was not human. The air around it shimmered with heat, but Akanni felt no pain. "You are not who you think you are," the figure said. Its voice was deep, echoing like thunder. Akanni tried to speak, but no words came. "Stand, son of Adelaja." The name sent a shock through his body. That name, Adelaja, why did it feel familiar? The spirit stretched out a fiery hand, touching Akanni's forehead. Suddenly, memories flooded his mind. Visions of a palace, a king and queen, a massacre. He saw his true parents, King Adelaja and Queen Yeyewumi. He saw their faces, their love, and their violent deaths at the hand of King Gbadegesi. Then he saw his own back, the birthmark he always thought was normal. But it was not just a mark, it was the royal seal of Ileoyi, a sign that he was the true heir to the throne. "Your name is Adeyemi, son of King Adelaja, rightful ruler of Ileoyi," the spirit said, "and you have been fighting for the man who killed your family." Akanni Adeyemi staggered back, his breath heavy. His whole life had been a lie. The spirit pointed behind him. There, in the roots of an ancient tree, lay a golden calabash. Drink from that calabash of destiny, and your true strength will awaken. Only a true royal may carry it. If you are not worthy, it will destroy you. Adeyemi stepped forward, his hands shaking. He lifted the calabash to his lips and drank. Power surged through him. His body burned, but he did not scream. His muscles grew stronger, his mind clearer. He felt reborn. As he turned back to the spirits, it was already fading. "Go, Adeyemi, take back what is yours." With renewed strength, Adeyemi rose. He was no longer a lost warrior. He was the rightful king, and he was going home. Are you enjoying the story so far? Please remember to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more beautiful stories like this. As always, enjoy the story. The people of Ileoyi had long forgotten Akanni. They assumed he had perished in the evil forest, like all who had entered before him. Life in the village continued, ruled by the iron fist of King Gbadegesi. But on the morning of the 8th day, a shadow appeared at the village gates. The guards squinted, their hands tightening around their spears. A man was approaching. It was Akanni. Only he no longer looked like the warrior they once knew. His skin glowed with power, his posture unshaken. The calabash of destiny was in his hand, its golden surface gleaming under the sun. The crowd gasped in disbelief. "He returned," somebody whispered. "He's alive," another muttered, their voice trembling. The news spread like wildfire. Villagers rushed forward, murmuring in shock. No one had ever come back from the evil forest. But here he was, standing tall, stronger than ever. Without a word, Adeyemi walked past them, heading toward one place, his home. When Iyabo saw him, her hands flew to her mouth. Tears filled her eyes. She had prayed for him, feared for him, but now she knew this moment had come. "You knew, didn't you?" Adeyemi said, his voice calm but firm. Iyabo exhaled shakingly. She nodded. "My son, I did it to protect you," she whispered. "They would have killed you if they knew you lived." She sat him down and told him everything. The night of the palace massacre, how King Gbadigeshin's soldiers stormed the palace, slaughtering King Adelaja and Queen Yeyewumi. She had been a servant, hiding when she found the baby prince. She knew he would be hunted, so she took him and ran. She raised him as a slave to keep him safe. Adeyemi's fist clenched. His father had ruled for 150 years, his bloodline blessed by the gods. But the former royal guard, who had once sworn loyalty to him, betrayed him. "The king used magic to weaken your father," Iyabo said. "He fed him leopard meat. That is the only thing that could strip your family's power." Adeyemi's breath caught. The king's most trusted advisor, the man always by his side, had been the one to betray him. Iyabo disappeared into her small hut and returned with something wrapped in cloth. She unfolded it carefully, revealing a machete covered in ancient carvings. "This was your father's weapon," she said, her voice breaking. "It has one words. It will win you back your throne." Adeyemi took the blade, his grip tightened around the handle. "It's time." He turned and walked toward the palace, his steps steady. Behind him, the villagers began to follow. They did not understand what was happening, but they knew one thing: change was coming. The palace gates loomed ahead. The royal guards rushed forward, their spears aimed at Adeyemi. But they hesitated. They had seen him die. They had watched him walk to his doom, and yet here he was, stronger than ever, carrying the calabash of destiny. "Step aside," Adeyemi commanded. His voice was calm, but there was power in it, power that could not be ignored. The guards exchanged nervous glances. The villagers behind him whispered in awe. Even the air around him felt different, thick with energy. Inside the palace, King Gbadigeshin sat on his throne, listening to the commotion outside. His advisor, the same man who had once betrayed King Adelaja, leaned close. "He should not be alive," the advisor hissed. The king's fingers gripped the arm of his throne. "Then I will kill him myself." The palace doors burst open. Adeyemi stepped inside. The golden glow of the calabash of destiny bathed the hall in an airy light. The queen gasped. Princess Ireti's eyes widened with hope. The king rose slowly from his throne. His once confident smirk faltered as he took in the birthmark on Adeyemi's back. The mark of a true heir. "You, a slave, dare enter my palace?" The king sneered, though his voice was tight with unease. "I am not a slave," Adeyemi said, his voice unwavering. "I am the son of King Adelaja. I am the rightful king of Ile-Oye." Gasps filled the throne room. The advisors shifted uncomfortably. Some guards stepped back, uncertainty in their eyes. The truth had begun to crack through the king's lies. "You are nothing but a dog I raised," the king spat, drawing the sword. "Then fight me," Adeyemi challenged. The room went silent. A duel. The law was clear. If the rightful heir challenged the king, the throne would go to the victor. No magic, no interference, just strength. The king sneered. He had ruled for years. He was no weakling. He raised the sword, his muscles tensed. The battle began. Swords clashed, sparks flying as steel met steel. The sound of metal echoed through the palace. Adeyemi moved with incredible speed, his newfound power making him faster, stronger. But King Gbadegesin was no fool. He had trained for war his entire life. They fought fiercely, neither gaining the upper hand. Blades sliced through the air, dodged at the last moment. The villagers pushed into the palace, watching as their king and the challenger fought for the throne. The king growled, summoning dark charms, flinging them toward Adeyemi. But the moment they touched his skin, they vanished into nothing. The calabash of destiny had made him immune. The king's face paled. For the first time, fear flickered in his eyes. Adeyemi seized the moment. He launched forward, dodging the king's final swing. And, with one clean strike, he severed the king's head. The room fell silent. The once feared king, Gbadegesin, collapsed onto the marble floor, blood pooling beneath him. The queen screamed, falling to her knees. The advisor tried to run, but the villagers caught him, dragging him forward. Adeyemi turned to the crowd. His people, his kingdom. Ileoye is free. The people roared, cheering the name of their true king. Princess Ireti rushed into his arms, tears streaming down her face. The false reign has ended. The rightful king had returned. The palace, once ruled by fear, was now filled with cheers of the people. The name Adeyemi echoed through the great halls, shouted by warriors, elders, and the villagers alike. The rightful king had returned. The queen knelt before him, her face pale, her fine robes stained with the blood of her fallen husband. She trembled, her once powerful voice now reduced to whispers. "Spare me, my king," she pleaded. Adeyemi looked down at her, his expressions unreadable. She had stood by while his parents were slaughtered. She had ordered his exile. She had called for his death. "You were a queen who sat and watched as your husband stole a kingdom that was not his. You will sit and watch no more." With a single motion, he gestured to the guards. They seized her, dragging her toward the dungeons. The people did not protest. Justice had been served. The traitorous advisor, the man who had betrayed his father by feeding him leopard meat, was next. He trembled as he was pushed forward. "My king, mercy," he begged. "I was only following orders. And now you will follow them no more," Adeyemi said coldly. The warriors did not wait for further instruction. The advisor's scream was short-lived as he was thrown before the people, his fate left to those he had deceived for years. With the old regime crushed, Adeyemi turned to his people. "Ileoye will know peace again. We will no longer live in fear, no longer bow to rulers who take without giving. I will honor the ways of my father, King Adelaja. This land will be strong once more." The cheers shook the earth. That night, Princess Ireti stood beside him as he was crowned. She had fought for him, had suffered for him, and now she would reign with him. She was no longer just the daughter of a king. She was a queen, his queen. The years that followed were of prosperity as Adeyemi ruled with not fear but with wisdom and strength. His legend grew, his name spoken with reverence across the land. He led his people into a golden age, a time where Ileoye flourished like never before. For 150 years, he ruled, just like his father before him, and when his time came, he did not fall in battle. He died in peace, surrounded by the people he had saved. As the sun set on his final day, the village elders gathered to tell the tale of the warrior who became king, the man who returned from exile and took back his throne. And so, his name lived forever in history. Adeyemi, the warrior king. The end. Did you enjoy the tale you just listened to? We have more riveting stories just like this. To make sure you never miss out on any new releases, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon. This way, you can always be among the first people to know when we release a new African tale. Thank you for watching.